Sully.
Harmon.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Free agency freak out?
Freak out. I'm freaking out.
Everybody's freaking out. I'll tell you who's freaking out. Giants fans are freaking out, but we will get to them in a second.
Momentarily. We have a lot to talk about.
So let's start off the top.
First, let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say the buffalo in the room.
Well, hold on. Before we even do that, I explain who I am.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Do I?
Yeah. Go ahead.
A bunch of people are wondering who the heck is this guy with the mustache on the screen. I am Sean Sullivan. Welcome into Yahoo Sports Streaming, talking free agency freakout with Matt Harmon. I'm just a random guy that's here for comedic relief. He's the real expert. Pay attention to him. All right, continue.
Anyways, yeah. No, you're a good man, Sully. That's why you're here. But yeah, so we've got the official commemorative Antonio Brown to the Buffalo Bills shirt. I mean, an era that will live down in NFL history is commemorated by our good friends at RotoWare here.
We're so close to seeing Antonio Brown party at Marshawn Lynch's Applebee's in Buffalo.
Yikes. I don't think Antonio Brown wants that. I don't think I want that. I don't think anybody wants that. So, yeah, no, but I mean, it was one of the best moments, I think, in football Twitter history. You know, NBA Twitter gets all the deserved love as being like the greatest social fan experience, but I think for this one night in history,
the NFL dipped its toe into a little wacky world.
But honestly, I think we're talking free agency right now, like this free agency period to me, and really double back to our last year's work too, this has been some of the most exciting, crazy free agency stuff that I can remember. I think
this is one of the craziest years of all time.
Yeah, the NFL has fully embraced like trades and everything like that. And let's jump right into obviously the biggest news I think coming out of yesterday.
Right, Odell Beckham obviously is the biggest bombshell of the day yesterday. Traded from the Giants, head scratching. We'll get to Gettleman and the Giants in a second. In exchange for a 2019 first and a third-round pick, as well as safety Jabril Peppers. What do you think? I think, as far as a Brown standpoint, you got to love it.
Yeah.
That's one of the nastiest groups out of them all.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing, how do you think Jabril Peppers feels this morning? Like, what? Why me? Everything is coming together for us.
I get to get paired up with B.W. Webb. Sweet.
Great. Yeah, I mean, you and I, we're getting to the Giants, but like, yeah, Jabril's got to be feeling pretty left out in the cold here.
I get to replace Landon Collins.
Cool. Great. The Browns are on the come up, and poor Jabril is left out in the cold. But on the Browns.
Yep.
I mean, this is incredible. I wrote a piece last night for our website, yahoosports.com. Plug it away. And, I don't think it's outrageous. I mean, it is a hot take, and Chiefs fans were upset, with just the mere suggestion that another team could be the best offense in the NFL. But I think it's not out of the range of possibility for the Browns to be the best offense in the NFL in 2019. I mean, which is insane, no doubt about it, but just look at the talent and the ecosystem that this team has acquired. I mean, one, starting off with Odell Beckham, I think he is one of the very few absolute difference makers at the wide receiver position. One of the few, we hear things like double coverage thrown around all the time and like extra defensive attention, but Odell is one of the true actual guys that really applies to and changes the rest of the offense around him.
Here's a rattle off a few stats for you. We know the QBR with Eli Manning, but it's not just the QBR. It's also the sack rate goes up a full 1% with or without Odell Beckham. It's 5.4% without him, and it's all the way down to 4 with him. So that's pretty crazy. Interception rate jumps up almost a point. The guy has an impact on the entire offense. You're right. People downplay wide receivers and their overall importance, but this guy you can't look any other direction other than the fact that he's going to be a complete game changer for the Browns.
Yeah, I mean,
on top of the fact that they have a leader, I think, in Baker Mayfield that's going to be able to make that engine run.
Oh yeah, I mean, this was the thing. It's funny. I tweeted about it this weekend. Like, it really would be a form of football injustice if we didn't get to watch Odell Beckham in the prime of his career intersected with the prime of a career of a young ascending quarterback.
Right.
And, you know, there are a few Browns fans like tweeting Baker Mayfield gifts at me. I'm like, no. We don't. The universe is not that good to us. It turns out the universe is that good to us.
Who's happier?
Which is great.
Odell getting rid of Eli and the Giants, or is Baker happier just getting him?
Well, I think Baker has to be happier.
Right.
I mean, you know, Beckham's reaction apparently to NFL Network's Kim Jones was just wow. I mean, he was, I think, stunned by all of this, as we all kind of were, even though, you know, again, I feel like we're going to get to Gettleman, but, you know, he says we didn't sign him just to trade him. It was a consistent, you know, drumbeat from the New York fan base. Hey, you know, this isn't going to happen. They're not going to trade this guy. But there was so much smoke there. It did, in fact, lead to fire. And, you know, the crazy thing is that, you know, we have obviously Odell, you know, one of the most productive players in the league. You mentioned the difference with him without him. But, you know, I think the game film and the work that I do with reception perception would show you that there's more meat on this bone in terms of production. He owns the two best success rate versus man coverage scores that I've ever charted since 2014. His rookie season.
We're talking a lot of good wide receivers over that stretch.
No doubt about it. I mean, Antonio Brown is really the only other one that I think you could put in his class in terms of like the ability to separate. He has never finished below the 98th percentile in terms of success rate versus press coverage. There's no receiver in the NFL, I think, that has a better release move off the line of scrimmage. And again, you're pairing him with an offense that we were already optimistic about, not just because of the quarterback, but Jarvis Landry is a nice middle of the field receiver. David Njoku, I think, is on the come up. Nick Chubb is an ascendant running back coming off a great rookie year. I mean, again, to bring it back to the Chiefs, they have a second-year quarterback that we're all universally optimistic about.
Right.
They have a second-year running back coming off a year that was really good in terms of his rookie season. They have an offensive ecosystem with Freddie Kitchens and Todd Monken coming over from the Bucs. The Bucs were number 2 in net yards per attempt last year, despite some shaky quarterback
play.
of
shaky quarterback play.
There was still a really productive pass offense. You know, again, good offensive ecosystem, second-year quarterback that's on the come-up, second-year running back that's on the come-up, and they have one of the most dynamic receivers in the NFL. That sounds a lot like the 2018 Chiefs. I mean, I think we are looking at that type of situation here with the Browns.
And, I mean, they also have a guy that's probably going to be suspended for a lot of the years, a lot of the games, too, but they got Kareem Hunt as well. Right. So he's going to be sitting there in the wings, and if they plug and play him at some point next season, watch out. Like, where are they the best offense in the AFC now?
I mean, again, I think you could say they'll be up there in terms of the top
as far
five.
As weapons, a weapons package. I can only think of 2 teams, and they're both in the NFC that are better in the Rams and the Vikings.
Well, I think the Chiefs are better. As an overall offense, I think if you're betting right now, who's going to be the best offense, most productive offense in the NFL, you're still taking the Chiefs because Mahomes is unquestionably the best young quarterback in the NFL. I mean, I refer to him as quarterback God because he is, he goes into God mode on a reg basis.
Out of nowhere.
So I think for him, he's a great player. But we got a lot of moves to talk about, and I love Alex Meal's comment on the Periscope page. Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham Jr. traded is nothing sacred.
Yep.
No, nothing is sacred in this iteration of the NFL. But you want to talk Giants or what?
I kind of like which move has you most excited from a fantasy perspective. Let's get that take.
The Brown Beckham move?
Yeah.
Oh, I think
is that it?
It's got to be Beckham, no question. Again, because of the pairing with Baker Mayfield, it is that young ascendant quarterback that's about to enter his prime with a wide receiver who is, on a Hall of Fame trajectory. I mean, and Antonio Brown. I respect Antonio Brown perhaps more than any other wideout in the league because of just his pure route running ability. But the pairing of, I think everything that's going on in Cleveland is much more optimistic than Oakland right now. But I think Brown might see more targets, but I think Beckham would be more efficient, and therefore I like him more.
Awesome. Yeah, that's thanks for that. That's a good question. The Crow Show. Going to Gettleman, let's flip this around.
Oh, God.
What was he thinking? The biggest thing that jumps out to me is $16 million in dead money that you could have avoided by just trading him before signing him to a long-term contract a few months ago, less than a year ago. And then the second thing that jumps out, you have one player on your team from the last 8 drafts. Obviously, he wasn't involved in it, but that just speaks to how terrible the Giants have been. And he's a long snapper.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's not great, Bob.
No, I mean, again, we talked right before this, and they seem to be a team that wants to build around this number 2 overall running back, and they're not rebuilding. This isn't a rebuilding move because they just signed an aging safety in Antoine Bethea to, kind of help on that back end where they just let Landon Collins go. They are committing almost full stop to their quarterback who's been washed for like 4 or 5 years now at this point. This is a team that people that they think they're a contending team. This clearly, I mean, look, the New York media has already picked up the pail. They're ready to carry that water. Right. They're ready to carry that water for the New York Giants. But they're saying pretty much that this is just he was a pain in the ass, I think was what Ralph Vacciano wrote in his article this morning. And that's pretty much, I guess, the deal is that they think that they're better off without him in the locker room, turning the page forward.
Which is a crazy statement when I look at a team that celebrated him when he signed his contract. They had a dance party.
Yeah,
it seemed
everything.
You look at former players have come out in his support and congratulated him. And
all the players seem to like him. I think it's a management issue.
Right, a management issue, which who cares really? Like if your locker room loves the guy, I don't see him as an issue.
Think about this. This comes back to Dave Gettleman, who, I'm in a complicated relationship with the Carolina Panthers. I'm in the middle of like flirting with every team in the NFL for the fantasy.
Go see the
series.
fantasy episodes. What are we on? All of them are
4
out, right?
coming
This
out,
is 3, 4
3
coming
just
out
came out
soon.
yesterday. Yeah,
3 came out yesterday. 4 coming up. Make sure you check that out on yahoosports.com. Plug it.
And I think that, like, if you look back at Gettleman's history in Carolina, this is a similar move, although their career arcs, in terms of where they are at this point in their NFL lifelines, very, very different. But Dave Gettleman jettisoned franchise legend Steve Smith pretty much exclusively to hand over the locker room to Cam Newton because he believed that Cam Newton could not control that locker room if a presence like Steve Smith was in it. And I think he thinks the same thing about Eli Manning. Now, but what you're reversing here is that the quarterback is the ancient one in this scenario,
right,
not the wide receiver.
That's one thing. If you're talking about a young Cam Newton, we're not talking about a spring chicken.
No. It's Eli Manning, right? Like this is outrageous. I mean, it to me, it's nonsensical. It's crazy, but we should have known that Gettleman. I mean, you could, again, if you look back at his time in Carolina, you knew what you were getting yourself into, but you should have known that he was incompetent as a general manager based on the fact that he takes a running back, number 2 overall, in a class that's littered with good quarterback prospects. I mean, that is not a good team-building move, full stop. But I think we should move on from the Giants and get to the next.
Yeah, we don't need to crap on the Giants anymore.
I mean, we could do it. We could do that for the whole hour.
We were talking before that we could spend the entire hour, but I mean, you could go to any. You can go to the Fan or anything in New York to find that.
They're gonna be carrying that water, man.
They're
carrying that water. Mike
right,
Francesa got what he wanted.
All right. Oh man, this one hurts. I will always love you, Earl Thomas. I will always love you, Earl. I'm a Seahawks fan. Just to let you guys know, Earl Thomas is gone. No surprise here though. 4 years, $55 million. Go get paid, son. To the Ravens. Love it on one hand for Earl getting paid. On the other hand, the Ravens obviously needed a quarterback at the defense, losing 4 starters. He replaces one of those starters. Thoughts, Matt Harmon? I
mean, yeah, the Ravens are the Kool-Aid man this morning, right?
Yeah.
Like, they've been silent all through free agency. C.J. Mosley's out the door. Zadarius Smith is out the door. John Brown is out the door. They're losing players left and right. They don't get in on the Le'Veon Bell sweepstakes.
Right.
He ends up going to the Jets, which we'll talk in a little bit.
They see Landon Collins go inside of Division II, and they're sitting there.
So, and here we go. They come out this morning with a bang.
Bang.
They lose out on Le'Veon Bell.
Two bangs.
They get Earl Thomas, which the biggest difference-making safety in the NFL.
An eraser, an absolute eraser.
Yeah, I think if you look back on those Seahawks years, you see that Earl Thomas really was kind of the straw that stirred the drink. And look, he came out and jumped out this past season, and in only 4 games, he showed he still had it. After sitting out all off season in that contract dispute, he still played really well, and then flipped the bird, on his way out. I mean, epic ending.
Flipped the bird to go from one bird to another bird.
Yeah, so he signs a big deal with the Ravens, and I think that is huge for them. I mean,
yeah, they see that everybody else in the division's making big moves, and they needed to step up and get an eraser with a guy like Odell coming in to the division. Yeah, they're going to need to stick him on Odell a lot.
And they didn't stop there because right after that, news breaks that they jump in, they signed Mark Ingram to a nice little deal there. And Joel Smith from Twitter asked, can you still name all the Ravens running backs earlier? Because Buck Allen, I think, still under contract.
I'm pulling up our
Gus
lads.
Edwards, was their big rusher down the stretch last year. Kenneth Dixon still kicking around there.
Oh,
and of
my
course
God, Dixon.
we got Mark Ingram. So I mean, this is a situation where
Gus
there's a lot
Edwards,
of backs.
Ty Montgomery's not there.
No,
Buck Allen's not there. Kenneth Dixon, DeLance Turner.
Oh, I remember him from preseason. He had a couple little splashes.
That's a deep pull.
That's a deep pull. But yeah, Mark Ingram though I think is the favorite to obviously lead the team in carries and yards. And this is a good landing spot for him because frankly I didn't know what his market would be like. I actually said in my pre-free agency article that he might end up with a team like the Dolphins or something. Which just as again like this is a shot for you, Mark Ingram, to rehab your reputation coming off a suspension from last year. And everybody knows Mark Ingram's a good runner, but what kind of market is he going to have?
Boobie Dixon is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's a shout out to the Fantasy Live podcast that I used to be on with James Coe, Marcus Grant, and the boys, because Kenneth Dixon was like the biggest hyped guy in fantasy that never did anything. And like I remember when it was a couple years ago, who was because they always got like some random running back cycling in, but it was in the middle.
Like the Seahawks.
Yeah, exactly. It was in the middle of when Terrence West was playing well.
Oh dear Baltimore.
Yeah, right. Like this is what we're dealing with the Baltimore Ravens backfield. Terrence West was playing well, and I was like, yeah, you got to keep riding Terrence West as a fantasy back. And my mentions were littered with people. What about Kenneth Dixon? What's your problem with Kenneth Dixon? What do you not like about Kenneth Dixon? Town. I'm like, no, I like Kenneth Dixon, but like, come on,
Dixon's playing second fiddle to Mark Ingram now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is a good move for the Ravens to get a clearly established guy.
Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson's going to benefit from it too. Be able to better lean on that running game a little more, and that guy's he's a damn good back and playing. He was playing second fiddle to Alvin Kamara. That's my dude. Go Vols.
There you go.
And gets to go to Baltimore and be the featured back. That's a win-win-win all around for that crew.
No doubt. And Kamara, by the way, he's going to have Latavius Murray in that backfield, which is an interesting move as well.
Nice.
We don't need to spend too much time on Latavius Murray, but that is an interesting move that I think people will, maybe in the double-digit rounds of your fantasy.
How about this run? Real quick thought though. Ravens run of safeties: Reed, Weddle, Thomas.
Yeah, not bad. And they've had
Hall
some
of Fame. Hall of Fame.
Yeah. That's some stud safeties, and Tony Jefferson's not too bad of a player too.
Right,
he's
exactly.
still there. That's a good little safety tandem.
Mm-hmm.
I had Tony Jefferson tweet at me yesterday when I put the Le'Veon Bell tweet out. Like, man, can't imagine refreshing Le'Veon Bell's feed all day. Like, give me a break.
So here's a great question to take a spin. What hair product are you using from FF Dynasty 101?
So. I don't know if I want to reveal this on air.
Secrets.
But I go really cheap with hair product. I'm not kidding you, and you should pay me for this, Old Spice, because I use an Old Spice pomade. Like I do not use anything fancy. Let me tell you, it's just like playing the wide receiver position. You can have all of the athletic traits you want, but if you can't run routes and have good technique at the end of the day, you're not going to do it. And this is about practice, technique. And so you use here's the thing. Again, it's about technique and process. You put the Old Spice paste in, you comb it through, wait about 20 minutes, comb it through again, then you hit it with the hairspray.
Whoa.
Then you hit it with the hairspray. And you can go cheap on hairspray, too. Use a Tresemme or something.
I need to take notes. My hair is a little all over the place this morning. But
you look good, Sully. You're pulling off the vest, which I could never do.
It is vest season. All right, next one that is the big one, one of the three big bombs to drop. Jets agree to terms with running back Le'Veon Bell. 4 years, $52.5 million, $35 guaranteed. That is huge. Back in the green, obviously Michigan State, and he's going to look good. I really think he's going to be the best looking out of the three big ones in
his New Jersey.
New Jersey.
I'm glad we have you on this very important beat.
It's a very important topic. Odell. I mean, Browns, get rid of the lettering on the pants. Maybe that'll help. The Jets, we already know Lev Bell looks fresh and green. That's going to be good. And then who else? Oh no, the next team on the list is going to be the best looking. Anyway, thoughts on Bell?
I mean, this is huge for the Jets. And look, here's two things on Le'Veon Bell. One, respect for the showmanship to literally wait till the album drops to sign with the Jets, because it sounded like that was his best offer all along. He gets his mixtape dropping on Spotify. A fan perspective.
You had beat writers and beatniks all over the country downloading his album.
My whole timeline was people like, am I like with the screenshot of the album? Am I really listening to this? Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
He hooked you. But and then also on the contract perspective, I have never seen my entire Twitter timeline more invested in what another man's money means. Like everybody was out there with their agenda, and
that's a debate.
I'm actually gonna write about this later, because look, I really do believe that the running back position should be devalued. I don't think that building, sinking big resources, whether it's draft capital or money, into this position is smart team building. But at the same time, the conflict that I feel is these guys give so much to the game, right? I mean, they literally give their health and safety, and for many years off their life.
And a guy like this, that's a really good pass catching back too. The guy's practically a wide receiver. So I
just feel weird, like not wanting him to get his money. That's what I want. I want to see that more than like good team building. But so I'm writing about this. I won't spoil too much of it. But yeah, going into that, the pass catching aspect of it is huge, and I think that's the reason that this signing makes sense over many running back signings. Because look, Bell is a difference maker as a wide receiver. That's a fact. Like as a route runner, you look at a guy like a Christian McCaffrey, what he can do as a receiver. I think Bell is capable of that, especially playing with a young quarterback like Sam Darnold, who clearly needs more weapons. And the Jets, all of a sudden, we'll talk about more of their moves later, but they have an interesting group of pass catchers. Like this entire Jets offense gets a lot more interesting with Le'Veon Bell in it. I think he's a threat. You talk in fantasy, like where you want to draft him. This is a guy that's right back in the first round. No doubt about it. Up there with the Christian McCaffrey, up there with a Todd Gurley, up there with a lot of these players who have hit big. I think that this is a great move for the Jets and for Le'Veon Bell. And the key thing is that the Jets have the money. So
who's more excited about their new toy, Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield?
Oh, I mean, I think hard to measure, but I would imagine Baker's a more excitable guy. I thought
just like
this is great. Yeah,
sweet.
I appreciate it. So I think
I'm gonna use my Old Spice product, 20 minutes hairspray. He probably has the same routine that you do.
No
Dude's
way.
got great
Have
hair.
you seen that guy's hair? It's nowhere close to what I'm rocking.
That's true.
But anyways, so I think huge addition for the Jets, and for Le'Veon Bell, I think he's right back up into the first round, if not top 5 of fantasy football drafts.
All right, next one. Here we go. D Ford, 49ers. Get themselves a little edge rusher from the Chiefs in exchange for a 2020 second-round pick.
2020, man. Not even this year.
Not even this year. I love the pickup, not as a Hawks fan, but as a Niners fan. Dude's a beast. And you're talking, they're sitting at 2. I think this shakes up the draft a good bit. With defensive-heavy draft, they're either going to get a Q Williams type of guy to pair up with them, or they potentially trade back.
Or they could get Bosa if
or they
Kyler Murray does indeed go number 1. They can make America great again with Nick Bosa there. Let me tell you what, though. The 49ers have obviously invested a lot of capital in this front seven, but a lot of these picks haven't worked out. Armstead is kind of an average player. DeForest Buckner is great. I think he's underrated as a defensive lineman. Solomon Thomas has not come through.
Yep.
This of
spent
course,
a lot of draft picks, high draft picks.
So, and they probably will again this year if they don't trade down, as you mentioned. So, but I think this was what they need, because that offense, I think, is close with Jimmy Garoppolo there, with Kyle Shanahan scheming things up. Right. And this defense, like if they get good from a pass rushing perspective, it can cover up a lot of sins on the back end, because I thought this would have been a good spot for Earl Thomas to land, because everybody in that secondary outside of Richard Sherman was legitimately terrible last year. So I think this is a great move
and even
for them.
Sherman,
yeah. I think this is a great move for the 49ers. And it's kind of a questionable one for the Chiefs. I guess simply they realize they're not going to pay him, and that's that.
Right. Yeah, I mean that front seven is going to look completely different.
Yeah.
They're going to be going leaning heavy on the Cadillac on the other side.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. But yeah, so it's a great move for the 49ers. I really like it.
All right, here we go. Raiders. I think this is the best uniform, new uniform combo right here.
AB to the Raiders.
The silver and black. He's going to look so mean. So mean in that getup. But yep,
he's gonna look good when he gets mad at Derek Carr eventually. He's gonna look good doing that.
Oh,
in the
he's
silver
gonna
and
be
black.
so pissed.
Yeah.
Yep. But they get him from the Steelers, third round and fifth round picks. Like I said, I think he looks good in his uniform. How does he do from a fantasy perspective?
Yeah, they turn around and get him from $0 guaranteed to $30 million guaranteed. So AB gets what he wants. He wins. Hats off to you, my friend. Mm-hmm. But I think that from a fantasy perspective, he's not, I mean, no one can really make the genuine argument that he's going to be, his value doesn't drop. I don't think that that's possible. It's an offensive downgrade. It's quarterback downgrade. I mean, Pittsburgh is one of the most pass-happy teams in the NFL. I think they led the NFL in pass attempts last year, or at least passing yards. And, now going forward, this is not that type of offense in Oakland. They don't run the same way. So I think it's a downgrade. But I've also seen like people are a little like too overcorrecting on the downgrade because Brown, I think he could still push like 180, 190 targets.
Right.
I would take the over on catches props for sure. I know that the over-under right now is set at 9 touchdowns. I feel like he could go under that. But in terms of catches, yards, et cetera, I still expect those to be up. And again, this is another player, much like Odell Beckham, that is one of the very few coverage dictators, a guy who can change everything for an entire offense. So I think it's a slam dunk move for the Raiders, even if his production does drop and he's not going to be one of the 2 or 3 best fantasy receivers anymore. Mm-hmm. They get so much better on offense, and everybody improves. And, I think that it's nice that he and Derek Carr have a love at first sight thing going on that they are doing on social media. I don't expect Derek Carr to be the quarterback.
No. Yeah, I think we could have a change at quarterbacks this year.
Perhaps even,
very soon. Another move for the Raiders that could help out Brown, that could help out Carr in the short term. And that new quarterback that we were just mentioning, whoever it may be, they also went out and got Trent Brown, 4 years, $66 million.
Big money for Trent Brown.
Big money.
Yeah.
Big money. Good. Who do they have? I was just looking up their R lads. Who was their left tackle last year? Colton Miller?
It's Colton Miller, the rookie there.
Yep.
And actually, I don't think it's quite set in stone yet whether Miller's going to play left tackle or Brown's going to play left tackle. Because if you remember, the Patriots traded for Brown from the 49ers where he played right tackle. This is this is how it worked out.
They have Donald Penn over there.
Right, and he's at the end of the line for sure.
So whether you push Colton over to the right tackle, either way, that's an upgrade.
It's a huge upgrade because Brown was a great right tackle for the 49ers, came over to the Patriots to play right tackle, and then when injuries hit the Patriots' first-round pick last year, Isaiah Wynn, they bumped Brown over. He gives them a great season. And so I think that's the worry for the Raiders is Trent Brown really going to perform up to this contract? Who knows? But it's a huge upgrade for their offensive line, and that offense that, as we're saying, is getting better as a whole. So, I mean, again, probably overpaid. That's what happens in free agency, but I get it from the perspective of they definitely needed to improve on the offensive line.
So, last move for the Raiders, LaMarcus Joyner coming over, 4 years, $42 million. Yeah, that defense needs a lot of help, and they get it.
Joyner's versatile. He can play safety. He's played a little slot corner in his career. I like it as a movable chess piece. I think him and Carl Joseph. Carl Joseph's about 5'10". Joyner is very small. Probably one of like the 2 smallest safety tandem of all time. But look, this is a defense that really needed some help, and I think now they can turn their attention with those 3 first-round picks. They get a lot better in a lot of different spots, and they still have 3 first-round picks. They can do that. They can then address their horrific pass rush.
Workshopping nicknames still, but Mario and Luigi.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe.
I mean, what? But Luigi's taller than Mario.
Luigi's a little, but they're still relatively
right. But like Mario, I guess is definitely Joyner.
So Mario and Mario.
I don't know.
All right, still working.
We're workshopping on that one.
Yeah. Next one, Bills agreed to terms to John Brown. I know you like John Brown, big fan. 3-year, $27 million contract. Cole Beasley, 4 years, $29 million contract, and tight end Tyler Kroft, 3 years, $18.75 million. Allen getting some toys.
Yeah, with the Bengals when Tyler Eifert went down, which was often. Then he got hurt this past year himself, but he's a two-way guy, can block a little bit. That's interesting for a team that does want to run the football. Cole Beasley is interesting because if you think about skill set there with Josh Allen, he's not necessarily an accurate timing, anticipation passer. Those typically don't work with slot receivers, but I guess if you're asking Allen to make throws into wider windows. Cole Beasley's going to help in that regard. That one I thought was kind of a strange fit for all the places that Cole Beasley could have gone. And this was a market where slot receivers and slot corners got paid this year, which was
Justin Coleman getting paid.
Justin Coleman gets paid. Jamison Crowder gets paid with the even Danny Amendola gets scooped up in Patriots Midwest over there in Detroit, gets himself a $4.5 million deal, despite the fact that he never plays. Slot receivers got paid this year, and Cole Beasley gets paid. I thought there were other spots that were probably better for him from a fantasy perspective, but the interesting one, of course, and the moneymaker here is John Brown. Look, John Brown, I've said this over and over again, when he's healthy, He's nasty. He's nasty. He's a top wide receiver talent in terms of route running, in terms of everybody knows the deep ability, but he's a guy that gets open. He separates really well, and I think that he's going to be a big difference maker for Josh Allen. We know Josh Allen loves to throw the deep ball, and whether he was great at it from an efficiency perspective as a rookie doesn't matter as much to me from the fact that now he gets a legit weapon. We saw Robert Foster cooking. There in the second half of the season. A guy wasn't even productive at Alabama at all, comes in and makes some big plays. I think if you got Robert Foster on one side, you've got John Brown on the other side. Those are two dangerous vertical threats, and then we have Cole Beasley in the middle, Tyler Kroft in the middle. Look, the Bills' offense at least looks better on a skill position perspective right now. They needed so much wide receiver help, and I think targets and air yards are going to be available in spades for Brown. Again, if I was to wish cast and have all of my dreams come true, there were spots I probably could have liked to see John Brown better than with Josh Allen. But look, I'm going to be the biggest Josh Allen stan in the world now, just because I have to for the John Brown brand. So that's the reality.
Going to be, I think you've always been the biggest.
No, I'm going to be the biggest Josh Allen stan now. So I'm not. I'm going to have to change my tune on Josh Allen just to fit my narrative, fit my agenda.
Oh boy.
So look, that's what you got to do. This is what being a sports media professional is.
You got a Browns shirt on already.
Pivot, baby, pivot.
Yeah,
we got a couple of questions that I want to hit on before we jump through the rest of the outline.
Are you about to go to the Golden Tate one?
Yeah.
Okay, so Crow Show says, where's Golden Tate going to end up? And I'll follow that with a list of the biggest free agents. So let's start off with Golden Tate. Where do you think he's going to land?
I don't know. His market has been surprisingly quiet. I had a dream last night, actually, that Golden Tate signed with the Colts.
Okay, that'd be fun.
But to be fair, that's where I thought he was going to sign from the beginning. We know
Matt Harmon in full free agency freak out mode.
Yeah, I'm dreaming.
Golden Tate landing spots.
I'm dreaming about free agents, man. That would be great. But it seems that the Colts already signed Devin Funchess, which I don't think means like you're done.
Funchess.
I don't think like that means you're done at the wide receiver position. I think they could still use another slot guy, but I don't know. I heard someone whisper today that potentially he goes to the Jaguars, but I feel like they don't have the money for that. And really, their only good wide receiver right now is D.D. Westbrook, who's a speed slot receiver, not really the same as Golden Tate, but they'd line up in the same spot. So it doesn't quite match.
Right.
Again, and the money I think is probably not going to work after they paid Foles. But I honestly I don't really know. I would still love to see him end up with the Colts. I would still love to see him end up with Green Bay, but they've also spent a lot of money. So
going down the list of still available big names, we have Tyrell Williams. That was another question on the stream.
And I think Tyrell Williams, my spot for him that I still think is interesting, and it makes sense that there's two spots, and there are two teams that have kind of waited out the early parts of free agency, outside of one move for the Saints where they brought back Teddy Bridgewater. And other than that, they've been kind of quiet. I could see, and Latavius Murray, of course, as we mentioned, but I could see them getting in on the Tyrell Williams market. Think about it, because what Drew Brees does best at this point, his deep ball really fluttered, literally, towards the end of last year. Tyrell Williams gives you that vertical threat, but he also brings you the ability to get yards after the catch on these crossing routes and everything. And I think that would be a huge hit for the Saints there. That's one. And also, don't rule out the Patriots. Bill Belichick is literally sitting out on the beach right now getting a tan. There are shirtless pictures of Bill running across the damn beach, laying out on a boat. He could get in there and be like, look, Tyrell Williams is still out there. We need receiver help. Let's go. They hardly have any receivers on the roster right now.
Ooh, yeah, I like that fit. I like those fits. Another one, running back, Tevin Coleman. He's still out there.
I thought Tevin Coleman would end up with the Jets if Bell went to the Raiders or Ravens. Obviously, I think that door has closed. I think the Ravens door has closed as well. The Raiders, I don't necessarily see that one coming to fruition. But yeah, Coleman is a tough guy to spot right now because we learned over the last half of the year that Coleman is not a foundation running back, right? There were times where, Devonta Freeman basically missed all of last year, and Coleman really didn't ever jump out and
never grabbed that spot.
No, he never grabbed that spot. So I think that he's going to be someone that's in a rotation. If his price gets cheap, I wouldn't necessarily rule out that the Falcons look at maybe bringing him back.
Right.
At this point, there's not a lot of spots that, like, we have a big running back need. Like, we need a starting running back. So I think Coleman could be waiting out the market here for a little while.
Flipping over to the other side of the ball, we have Justin Houston and Ziggy Ansah, a few other names. Cam Wake, I think, is still out there.
You know who I didn't. Well, Cam Wake, I think, signed this morning.
He
actually.
did. Okay,
yeah,
I missed that.
Or last night after. Well, it got lost in the.
He
was sandwiched between Odell Beckham and Le'Veon Bell. So if you missed
all other news,
I think it was with the Titans that he signed a deal with. But I'm even blanking. But he got himself a nice deal for the fact that
he did go to the Titans.
Got himself a nice deal for being like ancient. He's played forever. So good for him to get out of Miami. The Titans quietly have made some decent moves.
Right.
By the way, they've got Cam Wake. They got Roger Saffold, the Rams guard. That's going to be a big boost to their run game, which ended the year
Derrick
strong.
Henry really happy about that.
And Adam Humphries, kind of a nice slot receiver sleeper there. But
we'll get to Adam Humphries here in a little bit.
But going back to Tevin Coleman, I wouldn't rule out that again he has to wait out that market a little bit. But there are teams that do need that big play explosion element in the passing game. I think those are the teams to really watch out for.
Let's see. A couple questions coming in. Any worry about the Vikings production? We have a Vikings question. After they lose another offensive tackle, we were talking about the biggest weapon core out there. They're definitely among the top. They lose another tackle. Poor O-line play. Are you worried with Captain Kirk getting peppered?
Well, I think what's more interesting about the Vikings is really their offensive philosophy shift. They're a team that last year they tried to be more progressive, spread, up-tempo offense. John DeFilippo gets fired. I think there was always a philosophical difference here. And now, like, the Kubiak crew has rolled in.
Yeah.
Kevin Stefanski's back as the offensive coordinator, but Gary Kubiak, assistant head coach, offensive advisor. His son is in position now on the coaching staff as a quarterback coach. Rick Dennison, his longtime boy, is back there coaching being the run game coordinator. So I think if you're looking for what's going to happen with the Vikings, they do need some offensive line help because this is going to be a team that's based on the run game, based on their coaching staff hires. So I agree with you. And someone mentioned in the chat about Pierre Desir still available. Well, as we're talking, he re-signs with the Colts, which is a nice move for them. He played well as a cornerback last year. Colts are actually surprisingly, they limited wide receiver production very well last year, especially perimeter guys, and Pierre Desir was a big part of that. So that's a nice move for Chris Ballard and the Colts, who have been quiet.
Fantasy Longshot is asking, Nuke Hopkins or OBJ for wide receiver 1 in redraft and or dynasty?
I got to tell you, in a redraft right now, this is tough. We were having my friends and I were having this debate last night in our group chat. Marcus Grant and franchise and all of us were talking about this.
Clowns.
And, all those goofballs. And I said Beckham, but I might just be caught up in the hype. I might be caught up in the hype.
I'm sipping that.
I might be caught up in the hype.
I'm all in. Yes, I'll go with Odell. 100%.
I think if it was like, listen, gun to Sully's head, not my head.
Of course, the hair.
No. Gun to Sully's head. Who do you think outproduces the other? Who's the safest bet? I think it's Nuke Hopkins, but I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit right now for Beckham.
Yeah, of course, it's gonna be the safe bet. He's familiar with the system. He's at the same spot going into a new team. You never know what the heck can happen.
Juxtaposing these two together is actually interesting because a Giants fan was coming at me this weekend when I tweeted out about I want to see Odell Beckham intersect his prime with a young quarterback. He's like, well, people said the same thing about Nuke Hopkins, that he could be more productive with a good young quarterback like that. And, oh, by the way, he had the same stats this past year that he did back in 2015 with Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, all those things. I was like, wait, though. Remember this. He put up those stats this year on 160 targets, where it took him 192 to get to those numbers with those other guys. It's not about the raw stats, it's about the efficiency.
Dropping knowledge bombs.
That's what we're looking at here with Beckham, to again put that there are more. There's more icing on the cake it could be there for Beckham because we saw it with Hopkins.
Do we want to keep talking? Do we want to keep talking wideouts, or do we want to talk Packers?
Before we get to Packers, I do want to say Tevin Coleman to Philly. Someone mentioned that in the chat. Yep. That's an interesting option. Right. Doing here with the salary cap, but like they just somehow get $13 million out of nowhere because they move Khalil Mack's money around.
Right.
And they clearly want
contract Tetris.
Yeah, who knows how that works, but they clearly want something different in the running back spot. They want to trade Jordan Howard. They want to trade him bad. Really bad, which is kind of weird because he's a great runner, but I think – and he's cheap too. He's still on his rookie deal. He's a fourth-round pick. But I think they view themselves as too predictable with Howard on the field because he's not a threat in the pass game, and then if Tariq Cohen's out there, they're most likely passing. Coleman would bring a little bit more versatility there. So maybe look at Tevin Coleman. I like that Philly fit as well. But we can jump back onto the –
Do we want to go Packers?
Let's go Packers.
Packers are actually active. They're doing stuff and things, guys. Good job, Pack. Go, Pack, go. Preston Smith.
Ted Thompson he's not dead, but he's rolling over in his grave.
Preston Smith, 4 years, $52 million. Adrian Amos, 4 years, $37 million. Zadarius Smith, one of those Ravens that we were talking about earlier, 4 years, $66 million. That's a lot of cash. And Billy Turner, 4 years, $28 million. Which one stands out to you?
I kind of like the Preston Smith signing. Look, he was in Washington for years. He's not really a big sack guy. But he is someone who gets a lot of pressure, plays the run well. I thought he was kind of underrated, to be honest with you. So that was a signing that I really liked. And, of course, Zadarius Smith is going to be more their clear pass rusher. Right. And Billy Turner is an interesting one, too, because I think he's more of like a depth rotational guy, but they're paying him starter money. And, at his best, Turner is a good run blocker, and that is good news for Aaron Jones and the boys back there, Jamal Williams and all those guys. So
yeah, they need help in the front.
I just think it's interesting to see the Packers, like, they're really, they're different now. Like they're active out there in free agency,
which is crazy. Question: what are the Chargers doing?
They signed Tyrod Taylor to be their backup quarterback.
That's right. We were just talking about that. Tyrod Taylor coming down to Southern California, gonna be great.
Good for him.
Good for him. Backup quarterback.
I also kind of like the Chargers adding Thomas Davis is interesting.
Yeah.
Longtime Panther, one of the best Panthers I think in franchise history. Recovers from 3 ACL tears. Both his knees have ACL tears in them. But hey, he's one of the best like comeback stories out there. Suspended for the first half of this year, for 4 games this year, for PEDs. So I think he brings an interesting presence to the middle of their defense. They also bring back Denzel Perryman. They need to do a lot of work on the defensive line. That's what the Chargers need to be thinking about doing.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. All right. Speaking of defensive line, Anthony Barr was potentially going to put his hand in the ground with the Jets, decides to stick around with the Vikings, 5 years, $67.5 million. Yowzer.
I kind of think that this is a good move for the Jets because I don't know about Greg Williams like coaching up Anthony Barr at this point. A guy like Barr who he's a good player. Mm-hmm. I don't think he ever became the dynamic threat that people thought he was going to be, but to go back to the Vikings, I think is a good move for him. But otherwise, the Jets have cleaned up. I mean, we talked Bell up top, but they've got C.J. Mosley on a 5-year deal, $85 million, making him the highest paid, I believe, middle linebacker in the NFL.
Yep.
They trade for Kelechi Osemele from the Raiders. I love that move because Osemele was like one of the best guards in the league back in like 2016. He's fallen off the last couple years. I mean, Tom Cable ruined. You know this is a Seahawks fan. Tom Cable ruins everything.
Let's just. I swear, if he's trying to flip a guy from one side of the ball to the other one more time in the NFL, it's going to make my head explode. And he doesn't even coach the Seahawks anymore.
So Osemele has a bad year under Cable last year, but I think this is a good reclamation project for the Jets who have the money. And then the big one for fantasy is Jamison Crowder. I tend to think Crowder is going to be a better real life player for the Jets, and bring in Sam Darnold along. And Sam Darnold now has a lot of guys who can maybe not create separation, but can be used in open windows. I mean, Crowder's a nice slot receiver. Quincy Enunwa was kind of a big slot receiver himself. He's still on the roster. And then, of course, Le'Veon Bell.
Right.
This is an interesting offense. And, of course, Robbie Anderson taking the top off the defense. Those two connected well at the end of the year.
You can spread it out and stick Bell and Crowder on either side of the ball from each other. And
yeah.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, and as long as Adam Gase doesn't mess it up, I mean, as long as these guys don't get on his bad side, we could be cooking here with New York and Sam Darnold. I mean, It's really interesting.
Woo. Speaking of cooking, Chiefs agreed to terms with Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, 3 years, $42 million. Yeah, that's that. I think that bodes well for their defense.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, a big-time signing for them. I think this probably leads to Eric Berry getting cut, who has struggled to stay healthy, etc. Wish him the best, if he does indeed get cut. But
come to Seattle.
Oh, that is interesting. Tyrann Mathieu, though, Tyrann Mathieu, I don't think he was quite back to the level that he was last year, but he was a good run defender. I think that he's a player that's really going to make a difference for this Chiefs defense that is
losing pieces
up front in the pass rush. And if you're going to lose some horses in the pass rush,
better
make up for it on the back end. And Tyrann Mathieu, again, one of the more versatile defenders in the NFL. Question from the chat I think is interesting. Ndamukong Suh, extra quiet on his market right now. Will Suh stay in L.A. was the question from the chat, but I think they might mean will he stay in L.A., but head over to Carson there.
We were just mentioning they needed help up front.
I mean, they lost a ton of defensive tackles. Suh would make a big difference for them.
Bosa would love adding a guy that would take up a bunch of blocks up front and leave him a little space on the outside.
Well, and they need defensive tackle help right now because they don't have any on the roster, but they've needed some presence on the inside anyways because they have two great outside pass rushers, and Bosa can work inside a little bit, but Bosa, Ingram out there on the edge, having a big run defender in the middle to take up blockers for a guy like Thomas Davis as he gets older, for Denzel Perryman, who struggled with injury a little bit, would make their front much better, and, by the way, would help them not get completely run over like they did by the Patriots in the playoffs.
Yep. Run over, just completely steamrolled. And unfortunately, they really need some help on the front, and hopefully they get it. That would be a really good move for Suh.
I like that question from the chat.
Good question. Keep them coming. While we're having the questions roll in, let's talk a little one of your favorite wide receivers that you mentioned a little earlier, Adam Humphries. That's a fun little spot in Tennessee with Mariota.
Yeah, from a fantasy perspective, I kind of hate this because there were about again, similar to Cole Beasley, there were probably a bajillion fantasy spots I'd rather see him go to. Green Bay, go up to New England, whatever. Apparently, the Titans were bidding against the Patriots. I think there was a lot more interesting spots for Adam Humphries to end up, who showed himself to be a tough, rugged, just your run-of-the-mill good slot receivers. And if he was in a spot where he would get 100 balls thrown his way.
One of the more efficient receivers I've seen. I think our old buddy James Coe was tweeting about how much he likes Humphries.
Yeah, guy gets open, he catches the ball, high catch rate, all that, what have you. I think people were happy to see him leave Tampa Bay because it leaves room for Chris Godwin.
Yep.
The breakout is coming.
There he is.
It's exciting.
We had a Godwin.
Somebody asked about
Perryman signing affect Chris Godwin.
Yeah, which, by the way, hat tip to Brashad Perryman for as soon as the Odell Beckham trade goes down, he's like, take that deal off the table, Browns. I'm not coming in there and competing with targets with Odell Beckham. So he goes down to Tampa Bay. A vertical receiver, by the way, that's what Bruce Arians likes. So that pairing is interesting, and Perryman did show himself to be competent, which wasn't the usual. In Baltimore, he showed himself to be competent there at his end of the Cleveland run, but no. This is not going to get in the way of the Godwin train. No. But on Adam Humphries, kind of a bummer in terms of fantasy landing spot, but nice get for Marcus Mariota and the Tennessee Titans because they had nothing going on outside of Corey Davis last year. And, they'll have Delaney Walker coming back this year, but, no guarantee.
He's aging.
He's aging and coming off a serious injury. So they needed some help, and I think that they got a good one.
Good. Next one, D-Jax.
Yeah. Hell yeah. This move rocks.
Eagles. Let's go. 2020 7th-round pick. Bring him home.
I heard Chip Kelly shrieking all the way up from UCLA when this one. I think people forgot that Chip Kelly basically traded Deshaun Jackson when he was at his production peak. Traded him in the division simply, or did they release him or trade him? I think they traded him.
I think they
right?
traded him. But it was for a box of Kleenexes or something.
Pretty much exclusively because Chip Kelly accused him of being in gangs and stuff. I think people forgot about how crazy that, because I tweeted that out from
Chip Kelly was a wild time in Philly. It seems like a decade ago now.
Yeah. Well, let's hope he does. I'm wishing him well up at UCLA. I'd like to see Chip be successful. I actually know their director of player personnel is a good friend of mine from Draft Twitter. Made it all the way up there. So I hope they're successful there. But this one did bring back memories of that incident. And Deshaun Jackson, though, going to Philly, for, basically a pick swap here.
Yep.
Home run move for them because what they needed all last year was a vertical threat. I thought it was weird when they traded for Golden Tate, and Tate is a slot receiver. They had a slot receiver in Nelson Aguilar. What they didn't have was somebody to replace Mike Wallace as that deep threat there. Now they do. Well, Wallace was hurt all year, and I mean it is another risk with an aging deep threat, but schematically this should fit well. I mean, Deshaun Jackson still led the NFL in yards per reception last year.
Golden Tate to the Packers seems like a great fit. Does it?
Yeah.
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 That was a question from any other ideal spots. That's a question from CM3910.
I'd look at maybe a team like Houston. They've made some signings. They brought in Bradley Roby from the Denver Broncos there to a nice deal. They signed Deshaun Gibson as a safety from the Jacksonville Jaguars, but they're a team that I think needs receiver help. Absolutely. So they're someone that you could look at. They have an interesting guy who was a rookie last year in Kiki Cutie, who was a nice little speed slot receiver for them. But I think that you could maybe look at a team like that. That again, I think they need to do a little bit more about pushing the chips to the center here with Deshaun Watson on that rookie contract.
Oh boy, love this one. Nick Foles, 4 years, $88 million to the Jaguars.
Yeah, I mean, can you tell me who the Jaguars were bidding against in this contract? Yeah. Our former colleague Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network basically said that they paid him this money to install legitimacy. To go into I love your expression. I mean, basically so that he would go into the locker room and if they'd come in and lowballed him, because hey, we can because no one else is bidding for you. Then the teammates, the personalities,
it was the baboon throwing money gift.
Yeah. So that basically that the teammates that he would come into would respect him as the clear leader of the locker room.
Oh boy, I mean, I think it's an upgrade over Bortles.
It's a hell of an upgrade over Bortles. And but the trouble with Nick Foles, again, money, whatever, who cares? Good for Nick, because I think it's great for him to have a chance to lead a team, which is clearly what he wanted. And I expect this to go better than when he landed with the Rams early in his career last time he left the Philly nest. But the Jaguars have a lot of work to do to build up that ecosystem around him because. He played with Doug Peterson. He played with Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz, a great offensive line. I mean, the Eagles basically have an infrastructure that is perfect for a quarterback to be dropped into,
the
right?
The Jags?
Do not.
Kind of you can make an argument the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, they're supposed to be built around the run game. Nope. That was bad last year. Leonard Fournette, is clashing with the coaching staff and management. Tom Coughlin's putting out statements just to put him out at the end of the year. The receivers. D.D. Westbrook had an underrated season. Keelan Cole totally disappeared on us after starting out well. Remember his game against the Patriots? He makes an unbelievable one-handed catch, looks like freaking Odell Beckham out there, and then he just gone, ghost.
Who is that?
They have no tight end to speak of. They have no big-bodied receivers. Dante Moncrief is on the free agent market. This is a situation where they need to do a lot. Oh, by the way, their offensive line was injured all of last year. They have a lot to do to make Nick Foles work there in Jacksonville.
Let's bring it around full circle. We have a few more minutes left. More Cleveland questions coming in. Baker Mayfield put up QB1 tier numbers weekly with those toys to play with.
I think he's going to compete for it. I mean, but I also think Cleveland could be pretty run heavy, especially they have good odds to go to the Super Bowl right now. Have you seen this lately?
I saw they had a 50% chance.
I think only
to win the division.
It's not even a cool take to say. It became so mainstream so fast to be could the Browns be the division champions? No, it's not even cool.
This morning makes it a little more legitimate. I mean, the Ravens stepped to the plate, but the Steelers are floundering. Yada yada yada.
And the Browns have so much to work with, and I think. Too, so if they're going to win games like that, and also, again, oh, by the way, they have a great running back in Nick Chubb. And, eventually Kareem Hunt might be in the mix, too. They could be a little bit more run-heavy than anyone thinks. So that might hurt him in terms of putting up those numbers. But I definitely think he's a contender for top 5 quarterback. I think he's a contender to go way, overdrafted in fantasy. Not because he won't put up great numbers, but because he is a guy who I think, will get really expensive, and we know that the draft in terms of fantasy, very replaceable position.
Right. Absolutely. A couple more moves. Trey Flowers, 5 years, $90 million to the Lions. And Landon Collins, 6 years, $84 million, signs with the divisional Redskins.
Yeah, I mean, Washington signing Landon Collins, like, this is funny money here with the 6-year, $84 million.
For a box safety.
Yeah, I would bet Sully's life. Not me. You never know that he will not see that 6 years. I mean, you all can guarantee that. But it is an interesting move for Washington, who needed some more toughness on their defense. But again, this just seems so reactionary. Don't love the move. I know that people really think that they paid a lot for him, considering then when you look at what Honey Badger got, what a lot of these other safeties I think are a little bit
more versatile,
dynamic. I mean, what Earl Thomas ended up getting.
Right.
What Earl Thomas ended up getting compared to this with Landon Collins, I think
I get the age difference could play a factor.
It could,
but,
yeah,
but still
at the same time, Collins as a playmaker, he will make some splash moves for that defense, no doubt about it. Now the Trey Flowers one is interesting because Trey Flowers, this one was one of the few, I should say, that I got right in terms of like predicting landing spot for a player with Detroit here, because it was easy to see. Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn, former Patriots guys. They're bringing in a ton of former Patriots, but this one, while we mocked it earlier, I like this one. They needed edge rushing help. Ziggy Ansah still out there on the market. They're not going to bring him back.
Right.
They get Trey Flowers in here, and he's a guy who can play a little inside, play a little outside. He's very versatile. I like this move for them. They had
knows
the money.
The defense already can come right in and play.
Yeah, and I like someone that has worked with Trey Flowers before, and Matt Patricia, bringing him in as opposed to him going, somewhere that doesn't know him. That we would have had to, try to see where he fits, because he's not just your typical, Julius Peppers type edge rusher. He's more of a Michael Bennett type player, which again brings us back to the genius of the Patriots, who will get a third-round compensatory pick for letting Trey Flowers walk out the door. And who do they replace him with? They do a little late pick swap, late pick trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. They get Michael Bennett, the player he's very comparable to just slide right in and probably get pretty similar production. Last year, Bennett actually had more pressures and more sacks last year than Flowers did. So it's just interesting. Obviously, again, age difference, but good move. Good move for both teams, I think.
Last one that interested me, because that was interesting to me, Frank Gore.
Yeah, let's end it on Frank Gore.
Let's end it on Frankie going to your Bills.
I mean, not my Bills. Not my Bills. But I do think that this is. I mean, I hope this kind of sucks in terms of is this the end for Frank Gore?
I
mean, and all the Bills, by the way, like building
going full circle, staying in Miami, coming home to Miami. Miami does suck, but whatever. You're going off into retirement underneath the sun. Now you're going to be stuck at an Applebee's in Buffalo.
Yeah,
that's how a Hall of Fame career is going to end. In the snow.
I know. I guess Buffalo, while they're also trying to build like these just deep threat wide receiver core for Josh Allen, they're also trying to build like the running back retirement home with LaShawn McCoy over 30, Frank Gore over 30, Chris Ivory still there, by the way. He's 30 years old. He's like the oldest running back group in the league. I hope this isn't how it ends for Frank Gore, or I hope it's something like crazy, like the Bills have this great offensive breakout with Josh Allen, again, who is obviously a stud.
Yeah.
And
your boy.
And John Brown out there, and then Frank Gore like usurps LaShawn McCoy, or LaShawn McCoy throws some boat party that
they actually make the playoffs or something crazy. Is that what you're alluding to?
I hope it ends well for Frank Gore, because like he's a lot of respect.
At least sweep the Dolphins.
Yeah, but all right, I think that's. We talked
free agency freak out.
We freaked out. We talked a lot of moves. This is great. For the people out there, if you have more questions that we didn't answer in the chat, feel free to @ me on Twitter @MattHarmon_BYB, and I'll catch up with you guys a little bit later. But hey, look, for me, for Sully, let's get out of here. We got a lot of other stuff to do.
That's right.
And there's more news breaking. Oh, by the way, former Chargers wide receiver intends to sign with the Oakland Raiders, Tyrell Williams.
Whoa, that's
look at
awesome.
that big news as it breaks. That's a big move.
Like before we go, like that's a really good 1-2 punch for Derek Carr or whoever is going to be their quarterback.
Do you know who I think Tyrell Williams is kind of similar to from like a big yards after catch perspective? No. Big like slant routes, outside deep threat, kind of like Martavis Bryant, who is, by the way, I think still plucking around there with the Raiders too. Ooh. So and we know that Antonio Brown and Bryant had some nice success together. So
there you go.
That's a good get for the Raiders. That's
a really good get.
I'll see the money, but good get for the Raiders.
Yeah.
Here we go. Look at that. Right as this ends, we could get news breaking.
Right as it ends, we're freaking out over the Raiders.
Free agency freak out, baby. All right.